Welcome to Fieldsports Britain. Coming up, Andy Crow is with fledgling crow shooting pigeons sushi style over what will be wasabi peas. We are hand lining out of the back of a seaboat on the south coast of England and catching a 1 in 1,000 fish. First, it's the silly season where stalkers across Europe get roebuck fever. We're out with Roy Lupton on 4 separate outings to learn as much as we can about how to call in this beautiful deer. Even if we do say so ourselves, we've filmed some lovely reactions to the call. It's become a bit of a tradition around about the end of July and beginning of August when every roebuck in Europe starts behaving like John Travolta in Greece. This year, Roy wants to film the roe rut from top to bottom and end to end. He wants to try and surpass everything we've done before and decides to head out on 4 different occasions during the rut to cover as much ground as possible. We're not looking to shoot everything in sight. Of course, he wants to take a few animals, but it's all about working the call, watching and learning.
So the rut's kicked off. I've spoken to a few friends and they say that the roe are really responding well to the call. And it's been really stormy and the storm has been building, but unfortunately it's now just broken and it is absolutely tipping down.
Our first outing is not ideal. Pouring rain, the first proper showers for weeks. But it's a good test. Rain is never thought of as a good thing for a stalker, so will it affect the bucks looking for love at this time of year? This evening we are joined by Mr. Crow, who has come along for the ride and looks very dapper in Roy's headgear. He doesn't use a call, so is interested to see it in action. Roy picks a spot and the call falls on deaf ears. We give it 10 minutes and move on. We're now getting soaked. Roy calls again. Nothing, so we start setting up the fox call, but then from the scrub out comes a buck. He stops on the call, but he's spotted us. Lesson number 1, it pays to be patient even when it's raining, and of course there's a blame game going on.
Perhaps if we'd continued and persevered a little bit, we would have had a little bit more of a successful outcome. So I'm blaming that one on Andy though. I'm sure he's jinxed us.
Why are you blaming me, Rob?
Sorry?
Why
I can't believe you did that to me, mate. I mean,
why are you blaming me? I did say to you,
actually,
squeak a bit longer.
Did you really?
I said to you
Sorry,
down
mate,
there,
I must have misheard that bit.
I said to you, let's squeak a bit longer. You never know if you've aroused something.
Does squeaking arouse them, you know?
It does.
Really?
Well, it rouses me, you know.
We try calling a fox, but nothing, so to finish off we decide to give Jordan a heart attack.
We've got an elephant call on here. I'm just going to play it as soon as he tries to grab it now. That's not fair, he didn't jump.
Jordan, too cool for school there. We soon give up, just like the camera, and wait for better weather. 5 days later we're in Hampshire and it's going to be speed stalking. Well, Roy's version.
Day 2 filming on the roebuck rut. We've got a couple of thousand acres to get around as quickly as we can, so we're going to go to likely looking spots where hopefully there might be some roe couched up and just see if we can get some behaviour happening in front of us.
Our first deer sighting is a doe grazing near the browse line Roy had spotted earlier. She doesn't clock us in the crop. Undisturbed, she disappears back into the wood only to reappear with this chap behind her. It's the big buck Roy has been leaving alone.
So that's the big boy. He's got his nose right up there behind, so the chances of him calling off are quite slim.
We venture into the wood and try a few more tricks to stir up a response. Roy finds the inner gorilla shaking foliage and even the inner raging bull with a bit of ground pawing. The local bucks are clearly intimidated and don't break cover, but our luck is about to change. A buck is feeding a couple of 100 yards away beyond the maze.
If we call from here and he does respond, he's going to disappear into the maze, and the chances are he'll see us before we see him. So I'm going to go around that way, come up on him, give it a call. It doesn't look like he's with a doe, so hopefully we might be able to get him to play.
What a reaction, and just what we'd hoped for.
That couldn't have worked out any better. So, he came beautifully in there. So, just a few peeps. You could see that he wasn't on a doe, and where he wasn't following, that just got a perfect response, and he came in like a train. That is a very nice representative 6-pointer. So, yeah, very happy with that one. I would have preferred actually to have taken something a bit younger. Not quite as nice, but he's not got that strong a head, but he is a very nice representative buck. You can tell by his neck, he's got a good thick neck on him, nice shoulders on him, so he certainly wasn't a young animal, but yeah, a good middle-aged buck. And he is beautiful, absolutely stunning.
With Buck Granexon in the back of the truck, we're off calling again. This time it's a doe that reacts.
Some chances are there may be a buck around here, but it's going to be quite interesting with the doe just standing there so we can see her before we start calling and just see what sort of response they get.
She heads into the cover, then reappears a minute later. With the Butterlow call clearly working, we ask Roy to run through his technique.
When we're calling, I always follow the instructions that I got from a guy that used to take me out when I was a lot younger, row stalking, John Tobin. He always taught me that when you're using the call, it should be like a heartbeat, so just a regular rhythmic heartbeat to start off with, so just a just stop for a little while, watch, give it a couple of minutes and go again, and just run through the calls like that. Obviously that heart rate is one that we haven't seen a buck. When you tend to see a deer coming in, then it all of a sudden increases, but that call will very often bring does in. And the reason for that is because it's mimicking the sound of the row kids. So if they've lost their mum, then they're just calling out. And if there's a buck with them, very often the buck will come in as well. You can then up the ante and start increasing the intensity of the call, as if it's a doe being chased by a buck. Often that will bring the territorial buck out, because he thinks that somebody else is playing with his girlfriend and on his territory. And then when you get to the end, which is a little bit of a distress call, so as if a deer is being hounded a little bit more, and very often that will just spark them if you haven't had anything. So if they've been rutting hard and they're couched up, if there's a buck laying around, sometimes that will bring them in, or just spark them a little bit when there's nothing going on.
Our next success is again with a doe feeding near a wood, which is supposed to be our next stop. Roy gets her attention. She spots us and charges into the wood barking. Not ideal. Our last call of the day is another long-distance response. A doe comes hurtling up the side of the crop, stopping within 12 yards of Roy. Running Rodo, crouching Lupton.
Every year it just takes my breath away, and I think that's what keeps driving us to do what we do, because it's not just about the hunting, it's about the appreciation for wildlife, it's about the appreciation for the countryside, and it's about the appreciation of understanding exactly what's going on and admiring the quarry. Every time you get one coming in, it sends tingles down your spine, gets the hair standing up on the back of the neck. It is just beautiful.
Row stalking, take 3, and we're back where we started. It is not raining, it is scorching, which may mean it's too hot for the road to be feeling amorous, and the rut might become nocturnal. Roy is also feeling the heat.
I'm pretty sure I resemble an overstuffed sausage on a barbecue at the moment, but the plan at the moment is I want to spot the buck before we try and call him, because in this maze, if we try and call him, it could very easily come round on us and get our wind without us even knowing and disappear. So we're just going to wait it out before we start making any noise and hopefully spot them. As it's cooling down, I'm hoping they're going to come out onto the open parts, open margins, and start feeding.
An hour and a half passes and the light is dropping fast. Finally, Roy spots the buck with a doe and we need to work our way in. It means a crawl. Roy can't get a clean shot because of the long grass. We manoeuvre and eventually the buck turns broadside. It runs but drops 20 yards away.
I was just waiting for him to turn broadside before I could squeeze the shot, and he eventually gave us the opportunity. But as you can see, boy, that is one hot evening.
Roy is happy but clearly a hot man. So buck number 2, but not the spectacle we have come to expect. Our last excursion brings with it a guest appearance. Row calling guru John Tobin taught Roy everything he knows. We haven't filmed John for 4 years. He appeared in one of our first ever programmes, bringing you responses like this. Tonight he is behind the call again. It's our last hurrah, and it is not going well. In fact, we see nothing. Has the rut stopped? Probably not, as this is the result our friend Keith had on the same ground. A disappointing end, but Roy can at least ask John a few questions about our experiences over the last few days.
One of the things I always struggle with is if you've got a buck with a doe, is trying to get either, the doe to come in or the buck to move in, or leave the doe. What would you advise for that?
We all learnt in nightclubs that a certainty is better than a maybe, and that's what you're trying to do. I tend to use what I feel is the distress call. That normally gets some form of reaction.
Can you give us a quick spin on that?
Well, we can give it a go. It's something like that, and just be persistent. You almost nag it into
responding.
Into responding.
And do you pay much attention to the wind in the rut?
No, I don't pay any attention to it at all. I don't think it makes any difference.
You think you can really,
Yeah, you can take liberties with the wind.
That's it, we need to find someone to take some liberties with.
That's it.
So we end with some of Tobin's top tips. To hear more from John, click on the link to our film with him in 2009. It's been a fascinating few days, and I hope the row have been giving you wonderful wildlife moments over the past weeks too. Roy showing there you can never second guess wildlife, which makes it so exhilarating. And if you want to know more about any of the kit Roy uses, from Webley air rifles through tack-light torches, please contact him on Facebook, but be patient, he's a busy boy. Now to another buck who comes into the call. It's David on the Fieldsports channel, News Stump.
This is Fieldsports Britain News. George Digweed has won his 22nd World Championship. The Uber shooter won the World English Sporting Championships in Canada by just 2 clays. That brings his tally to 2 Worlds and 2 Europeans this year. Singer PJ Harvey has got the Antis slagging her off because she supports fox hunting. In an interview in NME magazine, the British pop sensation said, "Seeing the hunt out on the fields is just so natural to me." With the glorious 12th and the start of the grouse shooting season just round the corner, it's the turn of the Scottish agent to give his views on the upcoming season. Last week, Robert Benson of the Moorland Association predicted a late season as many broods were held back this year. Now here's Lassie Smith from Highland Sporting with his view.
Pretty much what I've heard of so far, they seem quite happy with what they've got number-wise, but they are all sizes. Towards the end of August, they'd be better then, is my view. But that's only me.
And finally, an angler fishing off the coast of Nantucket had a dose of fishing rage when a shark pinched his catch. Elliot Sudal jumped into the water, grabbed the shark and hauled it out along with the remains of his bluefish. He later claims he'd done that to hundreds of sharks. You are now up to date with Fieldsports Britain News. Stalking the stories, fishing for facts.
Thank you, David. Now, after Crow finally dries out, he asks us out shooting pigeons on a standing crop of peas. It is Crow How. It's difficult to age the Crowman, and I wouldn't ask. It'd be like asking Joan Collins if she dyed her hair. But there are a few signs that suggest he's starting to feel the pace. The giveaways are a young Jedi is doing a lot of the graft today. He's got some new hearing aids. And lastly, he's blagged a hide tray from GMS to save his back from all that bending down for the clear pigeons, his lunch and his squash. Anyway, let's not dwell. Today Andy is going to show us what's needed to shoot over a standing crop. Lots of people don't like it, but if it has to be done, this is how to do it.
I don't like shooting in standing crops. That's one thing I don't like doing, because you can't pick them. But this particular field, there's a thin bit out in front. It's probably 50 yards long, about 50 yards wide. It's probably more than that, it's probably 60 yards long, 50 yards wide. You can just see it. There's a few peas there, but there's not many. If you get out there, it is open. And as you can see, right along the headland here, I'll probably shoot 80% of my birds. I'll let them go past and I'll drop them on the headland where there isn't anything. Because the last thing I want to do is shoot them and not pick them up, because that is one thing that really does wind me up, people shooting pigeons and not picking them. Because to me they are a game bird, they're vermin, but to me they're a game bird. I'd sooner shoot them than anything else, really.
So Andy roughly knows where they're going to drop, where the dog will make simple retrieves and where she might need some guidance. Marking where a bird drops is also important. If you can't do it mentally, write it down, just like they do in the grouse butts. Standing crops also require specialised decoying equipment, literally to raise your game. There's no point having decoys hidden away. Crow uses some homemade cradles and others from A1 decoys.
We want to be getting pigeons up off the ground a bit. I've got 2 different cradles here from that you can get from A1. This one's got a spring, so you can put a big stick in it. Stick in it, you can have it whatever height you want. As you can see by the ones I've put over there, I've got them up higher than the crop. The ones I've got, I painted them white, so that when you do put them down, you can still see them. I've got one over there on a stick, hasn't got a pigeon on it. You can see, even from here, 10, 15 yards, you can still see it. But if it's a green one, you wouldn't have any chance of seeing it. Yeah, so my advice is to paint them white. It may seem silly, but the thing is, the pigeons are sitting on top of it. And if by the time the pigeon's seeing it, it's underneath it, it's dead anyway, so there's no problem.
We're almost good to go. All we need now are the finishing touches. Keen shooter William puts together the new Lincoln Deluxe for Crow and assembles the hide tray. Child's play. All that's missing is the stair lift, the commode, and we'd be in OAP heaven. Come on, Crow. You've got visitors. I said you've got visitors. Let's knock some pigeons over. He is often asked about the chokes he uses. With his usual single-barrelled semi-auto, he tends to shift between half and quarter choke depending on the day. But with the double-barrelled Lincoln, he can have the best of both worlds. One for close stuff, the other for the second flaring bird.
The gun's got a single selective trigger, so you can either use the top barrel or the bottom barrel first, whichever. I tend to have the open choke in the top barrel, so if I only have one shot, I can eject and it's easier to stick a cartridge in the top barrel than fumble about and try and get it in the bottom barrel. If the pigeons are coming a bit quick, you can eject them out, and it's easier just to stick one in the top barrel.
It really is a stinking hot day, and Crow is also keen to remind people that fluids are not only essential for the guns, but the dogs too. Ruby is panting hard.
I bought the dog today because we've got a few some of it stand. If I get a few runners, at least I can get the dog to go through it. Make sure you bring a load of water. The dog's got more water than me as it goes. So yeah, always make sure you take a load of water for the dog. You know what it's like yourself, so look after the dog.
Crow is a little disappointed. Last year he had a bumper day on this field, and only 48 hours earlier, when he and Will reckied here, the birds were landing at their feet. Nevertheless, Crow is making contact with anything having a look, and those that do fall away from the thin areas of crop, Ruby works her magic. Only once does Crow think a bird is too far for her to find on her own.
Oh, I'm happy. I've shot a few. Tried out the new gun, tried out my new earplugs. Had a bit of fun, so that's what it's all about. So this one of the last ones we shot. It's got peas, few greens in there, but it's been on a bit of grass. And it's got some rape in there as well. So.
At the end of the afternoon, Crow recovers 68 birds, and as far as he can tell, none are missing in action. It's half the bag he'd hoped for, but to make him feel better, Will says it's the biggest bag he's ever seen. Well done, young'un, you will go far. If you want to ask Andy anything about his shooting or the kit he's using in this series, why not drop him a line at crow@fieldsportschannel.tv. He's a busy man, so a quick response is not guaranteed. Andy Crow there, who even on a slow day makes me envious. And you can click on more Crow Hows appearing up there on the screen behind me. Next it is Hallo Charlie. Here's what the world's up to this week.
Hello Charlie. Hello Charlie. We're here in Iceland shooting some seagulls.
Hello Charlie, it's Johnny in Norfolk. I've been out shooting pigeons after the harvest for the first time. I've got between 80 and 90 pigeons. The only reason I've stopped is I made a schoolboy error and I've run out of cartridges.
Hello Charlie, my name's Danny. I'm just on holiday in Greece with me deeks, as you can see, enjoying the sun with me dogs.
Send us your own Hallo Charlie. Film yourself on your mobile phone, just a sentence saying Hallo Charlie, who you are and what you're up to. Then share it or email it via YouTube, Facebook, Dropbox, or you send it, you name it, to charlie@fieldsportschannel.tv. Thank you for those. Please keep them coming. Now, it is summertime. It really is summertime. And you head for the beach, and once you've dropped your ice cream in the sand, you start to think about the sporting possibilities around you. Sometimes when you're out in a boat on a glorious summer's day, things just go right. The English Channel is stuffed with mackerel, and there's no better way my mum can think of to entertain the grandchildren at the seaside than to take them out hand-lining for these scintillating, hard-fighting little fish. Mackerel retail at about £5 a pound in supermarkets. Here's my mother into a fish that sells at more than twice that price.
Here it is, look at this, look at this. Look at that. This is once in a bloody lifetime. Go on.
Never.
Pull it gently.
Oh, he's a big chap.
Go on, just pull it. Don't mess with it. Pull it.
Keep tight.
Hold on.
Keep it tight.
Hold on.
Tight.
Hold on. Back into the net. Let it go. Let it go backwards. No.
Yeah,
lift it up a bit more.
Woohoo. Oh. Wonderful. Oh, fantastic.
Right.
Oh, look at that.
How often do you catch these?
Once a year. Yeah. Amazing. This is a once a year sort of a fish, a bass on a mackerel line.
Oh, you're
Exceedingly rare. Yeah. Fancy there just happens to be a camera on board.
Harry May is a Lyme Regis harbour top salty dog.
I've done this job for just over 40 years now, and I cannot imagine doing anything else.
Lyme Regis is one of the best known bucket and spade resorts in England. Located on the coast of Dorset, its harbour is surrounded by a breakwater called the Cobb, made famous in the film The French Lieutenant's Woman.
How can I let go?
Out at sea, the Jacobi children are getting the hang of this mackerel thing. It's all high reward stuff for the kids and for the grandmother.
A celebratory meal actually on Granny. No, at the Harbour Inn.
At the harbour, you reckon?
Yeah,
Right.
At the Harbour in Lyme Regis, yeah.
You're
Yeah.
going for fish and chips.
Oh, please. No, come on. There's a bass in there. Yeah.
Fantastic, yes.
You can have fish and chips later,
Yes.
you know. Although don't show that bass any batter, will you, you know. We don't want to spoil it.
We are obviously doing well enough to attract the attention of local fish gourmets. Back behind the carbon we have sore hands but smiling faces.
Definitely our best catcher.
For Harry's prices, look at his website, harrymay.com. But we got a lot of it back, from at least £30 worth of mackerel by weight and £30 worth in a single sea bass. Quite a result.
Now only come on this next trip if you really want to catch a bass, okay?
Now let's widen it out a little bit and look at hunting, shooting and fishing across the world. It is Hunting YouTube. This is Hunting YouTube, which aims to show the best hunting, shooting and fishing videos that YouTube has to offer. Now, there are lots of organisations involved in introducing children to hunting and shooting, but it's usually with the help of an easy clay or a fat pheasant. Only in New Zealand do they do it with wild boar. This film is from the Kiwi hunting magazine Hooked on Boars and is a film about HOB's boar slaying super comp, the largest pig hunting competition in the country, held at the end of July with a Toyota Hilux as the main prize. Back in the UK, and with the glorious 12th around the corner, the Moorland Association has released this pretty time-lapse film about building a grouse butt. Another great summer activity that is good for the environment and even tastes good is hunting nasty American signal crayfish that are oversized, oversexed and over here in the UK, ousting our own native crayfish from our streams and brooks. Hunting signal crayfish and picking wild garlic for the pot with ITV game chef Mike Robinson is the definitive film about how to catch them and cook them into a mouth-watering crayfish pasta dish. Nice work, Mike. Moving more firmly into fishing, and viewer Ian Sewell recommends the films of Wreckfish West. In this one, made by the Peak Lobby Group for Recreational Fishing in Western Australia, Simon Swamp Donkey Penn is after barramundi in, of course, a swamp. Now, this is the time of year when you are likely to find me and my family in a little boat catching little fish off the little English south coast. Well, Real Obsessions fishing charter Lake Erie is another family trip that's a bit bigger and a bit more American, with a noisy rock track, some massive steelheads, and all in a lake that looks a lot like a sea. Back to shooting, and staying in the US, AR-15 hunting platform Coyote Hunting with a 3-gun competition rifle shows Texas native 00 out deer hunting in South Texas, but he has been told to shoot any predators that pop up, and he does. Next to South Africa, where Wetty TV is out with rifle and dive suit with a hunting trip and a dive for great white shark. There are some good spearfishing films on this channel too. Finally, there is a big comedy tradition on YouTube, and so, says viewer Richard Walton, what better way to explain the great outdoors than a Forrest Gump with attitude? Nature Walk Episode 3 is presented by a harmless fool who explains any hope you have that this film is about going hunting with the author of Menschliches, Also Menschliches and also Sprach Zarathustra when he says nature is neat. That's why Nature Walk exists. How neat is that? You can click on any of these films to watch them if you have a YouTube film you would like us to pop into the weekly top 8, send it in via YouTube or email me the link, charlie@fieldsportschannel.tv. Well, we are back next week when it is our 4th birthday, so please don't hesitate to send us a card or a present. Very gratefully received. And if you're watching this on YouTube, don't hesitate to hit the subscribe button that's somewhere round the outside of the screen, or go to our webpage, fieldsportschannel.tv, where you can click to like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter, or scroll down to the bottom of the page, pop your email address into the constant contact form box and we'll constantly contact you about our programme that's at 7 PM every Wednesday. This has been Fieldsports Britain.